Good morning. This is John Haller. Somebody just give me a thumbs up or say, hey, I can hear you in the chat. We're going to do a live update today. I'm in California and I don't have the best setup. It's I had a choice in my stepfather-in-law's office to do it in front of a window, but it looks to the east and it's sunrise and I would go blind trying to look at the camera. So we're going to do an update today. We're going to talk about the Middle East. I'm going to be joined immediately by Brian Schrauger. He has some time limits, so we're going to talk about things going on in Israel and elsewhere. And then also, excuse me, Mark Sutherland from the UK is also going to join us. And part of the problem with scheduling this is that we all went to daylight savings time here in the United States last night. And I don't know if the UK does that, but I know in Israel, they don't go to daylight savings until the end of March. So it's all kind of confusing to get everybody on board. So Mark, hello.
Hi, I do apologize. I was 2 minutes late diving into daylight saving hour. Good to see you and good to see you, Brian. Thank you.
Yeah.
Likewise.
So I have Brian Schrauger. He does Prophecy Update for Tipping Point Ministries. And you want to go and subscribe and watch that. It's very good. And I think you also have a Substack too, don't you, Brian?
I do, but I don't use it. I mean, I have it because Tipping Point is built on Substack. Their website, endtimes.com, is a Substack-based website.
Okay, and Mark also does regular reports at the Sutherland Report. So I'm going to just get a little bit of housekeeping for me out of the way. I'm in California. Wednesday night, I think it's 6 p.m. I'll be doing a live prophecy update with Brandon Holdhouse and Tom Hughes at Rock Harbor Church in Bakersfield, California. Next week, I have some interviews, minute to midnight. I have a live roundtable on Wednesday, March 18th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And then the 20th through the 22nd, I'll be at Harvest Life Calvary Chapel in Las Vegas for their prophecy conference. And I can't remember what it's called, with, I think, Pete Garcia, Billy Crone, Tom Hughes, Kurt Reed. I think that's it. But anyway, so if you want to catch those. So anyway, I'm going to start with Brian. Brian lives in Israel. And I just want you to tell me what this is like, as I've sort of watched this. And as I try to gather news and information for my updates, it seems like this has been going on for about a year. But I think when I look at it, technically we're in day 9, right?
Yeah, you were mocking me earlier today when I told you I was war weary. You said, Brian, it's only been 9 days. I thought, well, true.
So anyway, tell us a little bit about what's going on, and then we'll get into some of the details about the back and forth and the attacks and that type of thing.
In terms of just living here, I'm in South Jerusalem, southern half of Jerusalem, and we get sirens going off here, and there is an app now that tells us how much time we've spent in the shelter over the last 9 days, and we are up to 7 hours roughly in the shelter. But it just comes, it was coming anytime, day or night. And the thing is, your body gets kind of tense. You go to bed thinking, okay, well, I have to wake up to this, and it's hard to get even go sound asleep. And then when it does go, when the siren does go off, it goes off. Everyone has it on their phones now. Even if your phone is muted or doesn't have an app, it will go boom, 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 boom. Start shaking, and you have an alert. Israel's able to break through to everybody's phones, and they do. And the way it's been working has been kind of nice. If you have to be under a missile attack, is in that we have had a 10-minute warning. Basically, we've had a pre-alert alert. So if it's the middle of the night, you can get up, you can put on your trousers and your shirt, and even go to the bathroom, and then wait for the alert. And when you get that alert, when the sirens go off, you've got 90 seconds to get to shelter. And where I live, that's 55 steps down. And our building has a really nice big big shelter, and well, nice for as far as shelters go. And I suppose we probably get 40 or so people in there, maybe more. Children lay down on mattresses in the back, and their parents play with them, and they play games. And the rest of us, if it's the middle of the night, we're tiredly looking at our phones, doom scrolling, seeing what's going on. We do have internet in our shelter, which is very, very nice. There's a bathroom down there, and sometimes people bring snacks. I mean, one time someone was handing out orange juice. That was very nice. So and then we wait, and then we're told we can go back upstairs. And if it's the middle of the night, you try to go back to bed, but you can't go back to sleep at least I can't, for maybe an hour or so. And then you wait for it to happen again, and it can happen anytime. So anyway, that's kind of what it's like psychologically, and it affects everybody differently. We have difficulty sleeping, difficulty working, difficulty concentrating. And then there's also the coping mechanism, which is very popular here, of Israeli humor. And so that helps to laugh at kind of the silly things.
Right. And I even saw somebody had designed an app so that when you went to the shelter, it would be a place to meet other singles. And so that it would tell you where other singles were in the shelter.
Right.
So never miss an opportunity to have an opportunity, I guess.
Well, I do have to say that we have met people in our building we have never met before. I mean, you live in the same building and you don't really run into each other in the hallway and in the stairwell very much. And so we've gotten to know our neighbors, and now we say hi, and it has created a sense of community. And it not just this time, but of course back, especially during the 12-day war last June. So yeah, there is that. It does create community.
So I'm looking at I use an app called Zophar, just because it seems to work best for me. And I see there was a big warning about 22 minutes ago for maybe Tel Aviv, Samaria, areas north of Jerusalem, up to about Nablus. So I guess maybe the question to ask you is that has there been a lot of what's the toll in Israel in terms of property damage, loss of life, and injury from these attacks over the 9 days? I know there was a big one hit a shelter area at Bet Shemesh, and I think 8 people or so were killed in that attack. But what's the toll so far?
I don't think it may be just barely above double digits. 9 were killed in Bet Shemesh, and 1 was killed and had a heart attack in the Tel Aviv area. I'm not sure if there are other casualties. I'm not current on any more than that at the moment. The biggest toll is psychological and economical. Businesses have shut down. Many hotels have shut down. And until a couple of days ago, people weren't even shopping, but Israel did reopen or allow businesses to reopen a couple of days ago. So people have actually been flocking to the mall, always knowing where the mamad is, which is a shelter, right? So anytime you go into a store now or go any place, the first question is, where is the mamad? So if the alarm goes off, I know where to go for shelter. So it's a psychological impact more than anything. Now, that's in terms of everyday Israelis. The state itself is it has an enormous economic cost in terms of waging the war. Billions and billions of dollars are being spent to wage this war, and nobody here resents that, but it is a reality.
So, I'll just give a shout out to Nicole. You can go to Nick Jan, her YouTube channel. She does live updates. Sometimes, with all due respect, Nicole, they're a little bit chaotic because she's doing it in a home with 3 teenagers, but she was out walking in the old city yesterday, and and she was in the Christian and Armenian quarters of the old city, and her husband grew up there, and so she knows everybody there. But everything was closed. I mean, there was
Yeah.
maybe a couple grocery stores open, but she says you can't even buy coffee. I guess,
Yeah.
which is a national disaster.
Well, even the Arab quarter is closed because they've shut down access to the Dome of the Rock, the Temple Mount, for Arabs during Ramadan. They're up there by the thousands every night to pray, and they're not allowed up there now.
Oh, really? Is that because of the war, or is that just because of Ramadan and the tension?
The war mainly. It's just if there's a siren that goes off, they don't want Israel doesn't want to have a bunch of people up there that are open or that could be hurt. And so it's mainly the war.
Didn't one missile warhead or something, because maybe explain to people what happens is that when an Iron Dome or David's Sling or the new Iron Beam shoots down a missile, it doesn't vaporize the missile. It breaks it into pieces.
Big pieces used often.
Yeah, and these are very, very large missiles.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, is there an estimate there as to how long this is going to go on with the war with Iran?
We keep hoping it's going to not go on much longer, but with Trump sending over a third air carrier, I call it the Bush 2, USS Bush 2, Bush 1, excuse me, USS Bush 1 is now on its way here. It looks like we're going to have war for the next several weeks. Now, on the other hand, Iran's missile supply has been greatly depleted, and their ability to send missiles has declined. So the estimate is that as much as 80% or more of their missiles aren't now used up. Now, they still send things over, and there is still an increased, in fact, risk of drone attacks. Drones are easier to launch. They don't require a launcher. They can be, set off from your window or the back of your car or whatever. You don't need a launcher. And there
again,
has been
when it's a drone, you have much longer lead time for when they're coming in, right?
Well, unless they're coming from Lebanon, and they're going from Lebanon into the north, then you have to detect it, and you have very little time to get to a shelter. And anyway, so Lebanon or the Hezbollah has entered into this. Israel's hitting back hard. Another reality here, just what it's like to live here, is that day and night we are hearing jets roaring overhead, and some of them are like, lately we've heard a lot of the tankers seem to have a direct air flight path. Their flight path was right over Jerusalem, and these are the ones that are refueling the jets that are on the bombing operations. So we hear them all the time. And then if we have a pre-alert, even if we don't have an alert for Jerusalem South in our specific location, we hear interceptions. I mean, we hear them basically all across the country, all the way to the coast, because it's up in the atmosphere. And so the sound travels and it's boom, boom, boom. And you know what? Everyone knows what that is. Last night, we had a pre-alert and went out on the porch and looked up, and I saw a missile coming in, and it was breaking into pieces. Like it almost certainly was a cluster bomb coming out of the warhead on top of the missile. And it flew over, and then we heard boom, 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 boom. And apparently even those small things were intercepted. The technical expertise that's going into intercepting these things is just mind-blowing. Especially the hardest thing is when the missiles go up into the upper atmosphere, right? Not when they come across, when they're coming. Oh, where's my finger? So if they're coming across like this, right? Then you can shoot them down as when they're on their way. But when they go up and then they're coming down straight down, you can't get them before they're coming right down at you, and that's very hard to hit. In fact, that's how Israel, I'm told, was able to get Khamenei and his advisors on that first strike by using that kind of a missile. They went up and this came straight down, and they had no way of knowing it was coming. Oh, we've had another reality here too, and that is the Iranians managed to knock out a huge radar system, I believe in Qatar or Bahrain, and that has hindered the ability to give the 10-minute warnings. So last night, for example, there was a siren, and it was like a minute and a half. So, really scrambling to get everyone was scrambling to get downstairs to the shelter. Well, pardon me if I'm rambling.
No, that's okay. I just want to say, Mark, I'm going to bring you in here in just a second to ask some questions, but I remember when we were at the media summit in Israel back in 2022, we went down to the Gaza envelope to Niram and another of other kibbutzim down there. And the one lady who talked to us said that living in Gaza was 95% heaven and 5% hell, because that when then Hamas would launch rockets from Gaza, they had 10 seconds to get to a shelter because of where they lived. And that, and it would, it would be a huge volley. And I think on October 7th, they shot like 8,000 rockets. It was a tremendous volley. And so, and I remember I think we were at the Fleischers, and one of the children said, 10 seconds, we have a minute and a half here when they fire rockets. Like, I think he said a minute 38 seconds, like they've got it timed to the second. But I want to ask you a little bit about, because what I saw this morning was an interview with Michael Oren. Is it Oren or Orm? Michael Oren.
Oren.
Used to be the ambassador to the United States. And I think he was on CNN, and he was kind of critical of a report that they said, well, Israel's going into Lebanon. And Oren made the point, well, do you people understand that 550 rockets were fired, or drones were fired from Hezbollah in Lebanon into northern Israel, where we have 1 million people under fire now?
Right.
And she said, the host of the program said, well, we don't really want to get into those messy details right now. We'll get back to those. But, and I know you interviewed, I would highly recommend people go and look at it, Zarit Zahavi from Alma Research recently, who focuses mainly on what's going on with Hezbollah and the border regions of the north. It is the thinking there that this is what is going on in Lebanon, if you can kind of explain it for us.
Basically, what's happening is the IRGC sent officers to put pressure on Hezbollah and basically take over, because Hezbollah did not want to join in this. They've been too diminished by Israel's attacks in the past. And so in the first few days of the war, they weren't doing anything. The IRGC went in and basically forced their hand, made them start firing rockets and drones into Israel. And Israel has hit back very, very hard. I'm not hearing that people in the north are evacuating like they did after October 7. But they are being very, very cautious right now. So Israel's going in. They have boots on the ground. They have had boots on the ground there for some time. It's just they're just over the border, but they're going in deep. They're going in there, and they've told all Lebanese who are living just across the border and south of the Litani River, look on a map, Litani River is like a border beyond the border. And they've told people evacuate there because we're going to go in and be doing operations, and we don't want to hurt you. And so Israel is aggressively dealing with Hezbollah. But it's a pain because now it's like, oh, here we go again. We're getting, people in the north are getting rockets from Hezbollah like they did for months and months and months every day, and until until Hezbollah was basically thwarted and defeated. Now they're coming back.
Yeah,
but in a very limited way. Very limited.
I saw that they had told people to evacuate south of the Litani River, which really isn't that far away. I mean, if you're in Metula, I think the Litani River, it's like a little valley that it goes through, I don't think it's 2 miles away. So it's not like it's a huge buffer zone in some parts of the border region. But also they were telling people to evacuate large sections of Beirut and to expect that there would be devastating attacks. It's really hard to keep up with all of this. So I'm going to shut up for a minute and let Mark and Brian have some back and forth. So have at it, Mark.
John, thank you. Brian, it's great to see you. And I know I said a few days ago when I'm sending a message out going, hi, how are you? And you said a comment that frankly made me cry, in the fact that you stated that people in Israel, Israelis, are prepared to go through this to see Iran free. And I can find myself welling up again. And the reason being is that you and I, we're sitting down having this conversation, and like when we're messaging other people, are you okay? I have tried to do that. And it's not about interviews because it's humanity. And that was very, that was very humbling when you said that. And this is the point when I said to Nicole the other night, I just said, my head is spinning with all the information, but I know I've said to you, but I haven't got rockets flying over my head. And this isn't, in a way, when we sit down and have these conversations, I feel as though, is it a bit like voyeurism when we're privileged to be able to talk to you from the outside? But this is the reality on the ground. This is what people are facing, but also to then encourage you and the rest of Israel. And of course, we have a responsibility in what we do say. And your resolve, the mental attitude that Israelis have, I just feel is totally and utterly off the charts. And I don't think I look at my own country and the stupidity going on with here, And Brian, that John and I we stood at when you're talking about Lebanon, we stood at the border last November. And again, just to hear that, this is humbling when people are talking about when they had to evacuate. And it's just the seriousness of this after all that everyone's been through since the 7th of October 2023, dealing with Gaza, dealing with all of that, and to encourage everyone to say, if you're not praying about the situation and Israel, then please do so. If you've got a theological problem with that, then I'll try not to be rude. We don't have time for this. But Brian, I just wanted to say that to you because there are many, many people, I know in the UK are just so disgusted by the politics that are unfolding, what we see, but stand with you and have for many, many years, But that comment you made absolutely got to me because it's true. That's why you're going through this.
Well, what's interesting is that Israelis aren't just like feeling one thing. They feel several things at once, which is very human. There's fear. There is, weariness. And there is cautious optimism.
Yeah.
And there's a sense that we are doing what we have to do. Nobody likes this. The other thing that I find very intriguing is that because we went through this after October 7 and for 2 years, and then last June with the 12-day war when missiles were flying in and we were running down to the shelter, that experience prepares us, difficulty prepares us for other difficulties. So when we saw the buildup of coming, when we knew that war was coming, there was a sense, oh, here we go again. But, it's not unfamiliar. It's not the unknown. For us, it's known. We know what we have to do. We know we can survive it. We know the routine. And that makes a big difference. We've had friends who were here and kind of caught here when the war began. One friend, literally, several people just fall apart. They had no idea. From afar, they could look at it and it wasn't a big deal. But suddenly here, they were just completely freaking out and they've gone bent over backwards to get back to their home in the States. So we've had people trying to get home and others who have been trying to get back to Israel, where Israel's their home. A lot of people have been stranded. I have a good friend with Bridges for Peace, Ilse Strauss, who was in South Africa visiting her mother, who's very ill, and she got stuck. And her story of coming back is very typical. She thought maybe she would have to go back, fly into the Sinai. And no, it turns out she went to Athens, but she didn't have a passport to go to Europe. She cried, said, I don't care, let me on the plane. They did. They didn't care. They let her in, and then she was able to catch a flight back. So it's very, it's been a challenging situation for people who don't live here, and for those who do, but are stranded. Oh, by the way, you all met Tricia Miller, did you not, with camera when you were here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Tricia is here. Tricia was here with the tour group, with the Robert Stearns tour group, and several hundred women, and all but two of them have left. And Tricia she's decided to stay. So she's at the King David Hotel, which is not a bad place to stay if you're stranded.
No. Brian, that's the other thing, isn't it? Israel is the only country where a war starts and people want to get back into.
Absolutely, they fly to go home. Yeah.
And I think I was going to say, I think that's really, really important to say when we're discussing the mental.
I just got a message from Jonathan Feldstein from Genesis 123 Foundation, who was doing a root and branch conference meeting in Georgia with Marzi, who is from Iran, ironically, and he's trying to get back home. He's like, I want to get back home. How do I get back home? And what do I do in the meantime? I want to be with my family. So you're right. It is kind of unusual that the Israelis abroad, when this happens, they want to get back home.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But John, Brian, doesn't it just show you, especially again with the propaganda and the media war that we've all been trying to fight and play our role, large or small, in since 7th of October. Again, it just shows all of that, the perception of what is actually happening on the ground, how that's played out within the media and the propaganda again. But Brian, I just wanted to express that to you because
Thank you, Mark.
It was powerful.
Appreciate it.
So let's maybe just sort of summarize a little bit about what's happened in the just 9 days since this started. It's really hard to kind of wrap your head around it. I think the initial strike took out Khamenei, which has led to some, we would hope, some disruption in the Iranian leadership, but I'm not sure that they've organized themselves sort of like the mafia to continue on when when somebody gets taken out. I think I've been saying, and I saw Seth Fransman say in an interview recently too, if you want to understand how Iranian government apparatus works, go watch the Godfather movie, and that'll give you a good idea.
It's true.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's entirely true. But there's been a lot of missile exchanges. The interesting part, and maybe Brian, you can address this, is that the for the really for the first time, well, yeah, really for the first time, Iran directly attacked a number of Arab countries. I mean, they've attacked. There's been missiles launched to Cyprus. Although I think those were drones from Hezbollah in Lebanon, I read this morning. But they've done a little bit in Jordan, but they've attacked Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, and I don't know how many countries have been attacked. It's approaching a dozen, I think. What is driving Iran to do that? It's hard to explain the irrational thinking that's going on to us, but what are they thinking? Why are they doing that?
Well, what they will tell you is that they are attacking the U.S. bases that are in these various countries. But in fact, their motive is to put pressure on these Arab states, these Muslim states, to in turn put pressure on the U.S. to ease up on the war and maybe settle and stop it so that Iran and the regime in Iran can survive. That seems to be the real reason behind the attacking of their sister countries. What's really funny to me, in a dark sort of way, I guess, is that they've been attacking two of their closest ideological allies, Qatar, and even Turkey has had a missile attacking at them. But Qatar's been playing both sides of the game for a long, long time and financing the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas and hosting Hamas. Turkey is hosting Hamas, and Erdogan, of course, is waiting to swoop in the first chance he gets. So if Iran is in fact neutralized, at least for the time being, Erdogan is just he's at the doorstep. He's ready to step in and kind of take over that empire building objective. In this case, it would be the Ottoman Empire coming back as a caliphate. So that seems to be the motive anyway.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, they're going after Dubai, and I get that, but this is having a huge economic impact on Dubai. I mean, I've seen pictures of some missiles or drones striking the Dubai airport, which I believe is the busiest airport in the world because it's a transit hub, and just completely the crowds of people crushing the counters to get out of Dubai, and some people saying the whole Dubai experiment is now over. The tranquility that they sold is gone, and maybe forever. So that's a huge economic impact.
One thing that's go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. But one thing is it looks like it might be doing is it's pushing these countries toward Israel, and saying, look, Iran's objective was to push these countries in such a way that they would convince the U.S. to stop the war. And it's having just the opposite effect. It's pushing them toward the U.S. and toward Israel, not because they're pro-Israel so much as they realize the real strength in the region is not Iran. And so as Iran gets weaker and attacks them, they're actually aligning themselves more with the U.S. and with Israel, at least in not ideologically, but at least with respect to the power.
Well, it is.
Sorry,
it's sort of being viewed as an opportunity to expand the Abraham Accords, maybe in a way that nobody had expected.
Yeah.
Because the Saudi, I mean, if we go back to the ancient past, like 2 weeks ago, the Saudis were saying, don't you, I mean, really, I mean, the Saudis were saying, don't you dare use our airspace or our bases or anything like that. And then one missile or one drone hits Saudi Arabia, and they're like, we're all in with you, United States. You do what you need to do and use anything you want. that kind of changed dramatically, quickly.
Yeah.
Mark.
I was going to say, there's another angle, isn't there, from the spiritual battle that we are in, and the wonderful Mordecai Kadar has just done, I think last night, just put out a 7-8 minute presentation. I think I've sent it to you. I hope, John, I'll send it to you, Brian, where Mordecai was then, with all of his expertise of many years, was just reminding us of the ideology of seeking, if we destroy everything, then the Mahdi comes back, and then we have our complete paradise. So I thought it was a really, really important, very, who might say, absolutely every word that he says is so important. But I thought it was a really important reminder of two things that are working out and how that's working out. Brian, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I have a lot of thoughts on that. I'm glad you brought it up, Mark, because for a long time I have seen this as a so-called, if you will, battle of the gods.
Yes.
And Khamenei and his regime were pushing Allah and the Mahdi coming back and their Messiah, and they were fulfilling the will of Allah to wipe out the Israeli people, to remove Israel, to annihilate it, to take it off the map, to push it back into the ocean, yada yada. And it's very clearly always done. All the sermons, it's Allah, and Allahu Akbar, and which means Allah is greater. And in the end, no, he's not. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob has strengthened his troops. He's blessed them. And of course, all of this happened too. I just love this. It happened on Purim, or right as we approach Purim. Last Saturday, a week ago Saturday, was Shabbat Zachor, which was the first day of battle, and when we attacked, and Khamenei was taken out. Well, in synagogues across the world that day, the required reading out loud was from Deuteronomy 17, which was Moses admonishing the people to remember what Amalek did to them and wipe their memory from the earth. And Zachor is Hebrew for remember. And of course, that ties in, and Shabbat Zachor always happens right before Purim, the Feast of Esther, because Haman, the villain of Esther in Persia, also Persia, which is Iran, Haman was an Amalekite. And so he was taken out. And so on the very same day that Jews around the world were reciting and praying and being reminded of the obligation to remove Amalek and his memory from the earth, Khamenei is defeated. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob clearly has won the day over the God of Islam.
Well, you may be seeing the way this is also playing out in other capital cities around the world, and the events over here, when you have also got events in British universities to hold a memorial to the fact that Khamenei had been taken out. I'm not surprised, but it's just a reminder of, it's shocking as well, and reminder of that stupidity, but also the investment from, as you mentioned, Qatar into our education systems around the world, and to twist people's minds. So yeah, you've seen that playing out, and definitely playing out over here and in the US as well. It's words fail me, to be frank with you, Brian, when we just reminder, it wasn't a few weeks ago where the regime is murdering a minimum of 35,000, if not, we don't know, it could even be 100,000 of their own people that they don't care about on the streets in Tehran and elsewhere. It's, again, words fail me. This is the ideology of evil that we are dealing with, and then people are not stepping up. Haven't they? The left have been, on the 1 minute they're on the streets, stop, pro Palestinian, but they have not been on the streets to point out what's been happening in Iran with their own citizens and that genocide that they have undertaken. Brian.
Yeah, in fact, the more people were killed in Iran in those few weeks than were killed by Palestinians had been killed by Israel in 50 years of conflict. And nobody said a word. It was crickets all around the world. Crickets. No, the silence was astounding. So, yeah, there's a lot of hypocrisy here. It's kind of mind blowing.
So before you leave, Brian, in a little bit, I want to address a couple issues with you. And again, there's plenty of information out there flying around. You got to be very careful that you're not getting propaganda, and that's my next point. I am shocked at the amount of propaganda coming out of Tucker Carlson. It is. I mean, I hate to bring him up, but I see Christian guys who do these updates citing Tucker favorably on things such as, well, the Mossad is setting off, was arrested in Qatar and the UAE because they were arrested with explosives because they were going to set off explosives and false flag events to drag people in further. And then Qatar and UAE came out and said, that's not true. It didn't happen. I don't know what you're talking about. Yet these Christian updaters, nobody goes back and apologizes for putting that out there and reiterating what Tucker said. And it's sort of like the old saying that, a lie will go around the world twice before the truth gets its pants on.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, what's the view there in Israel about this massive amount of propaganda coming from the right wing in America, even people who claim to be Christians? They say Christ is king, and then they spew this vile stuff about Israel.
Right.
So
well,
what do you think?
What I'm seeing and hearing about that is, okay, here we go again. This is not new. We've heard this from Christians for 2,000 years. And so, okay, there's some that like us, but this is what we're used to. This is not new to us and doesn't surprise us. And, we have been persecuted in the name of Jesus and with Christian language and theological justification for 2 millennia. So it's kind of a shrug, it's like, oh, well, here we go again. That's basically the attitude I'm picking up here.
Yeah, it's I don't. Well, we've Mark and I think you did that with me, Mark. We interviewed Karis Rhea from Epic Times, and I think you're trying to get an interview with her too, Brian.
I am. Hopefully this next week. Yeah.
Yeah, very important voice in this whole messaging. I don't want to dominate things here, Mark. Why don't you weigh in with some questions or comments?
Brian, it's again where John was just referring to how the IRGC has organized things in regard to if Khomeini, the leader, is then taking out and breaking it down. Other people, of course, in Israel, elsewhere, have been breaking it down in regard to the provinces in Iran and the control of that, and with leadership then going, with the missiles then firing off, because the leadership is gone, it's then giving, inverted commas, power and control to people that are left on the ground to then fire whatever missile is willy-nilly all over the place. Is there more of an understanding where you are of the actual political structure, and are we see certain things on the internet? are we seeing the Iranian people taking action to say, no, he's gone, we want our country back, so to speak? Are you seeing any of that? Is there any chatter along those lines?
I hear a lot of calls for it, but I'm not seeing any evidence that it's actually taking place. I don't think Israel is yet seeing a structure or a movement that is a cohesive movement from the grass level roots coming up to go against the government. We all want to see this. Israel wants to see it. Trump clearly is asking for it. Netanyahu is asking for it. Step up. And we are trying to create, Israel and the U.S., we are trying to create conditions for this to happen, but we can't make it happen. So for everyone who prays, this is definitely something to pray about.
Yes.
That the right people will rise up, the right people, and replace this regime with something that is not going to build nuclear weapons, that is going to be just, that is going to be basically have Judeo-Christian values, whether or not they're Judeo or Christian. And by the way, there are Christians. There are a lot of Christians in Iran.
Yes, there is.
So we need to pray for them that as God leads, they will rise up.
Brian, when you're saying that, and brilliant, we're discussing prayer. Is there any other points that come to your mind to help people to pray in this situation at the moment?
I don't know that I have anything that's especially profound. What we need are the things of course, you'd pray for. We need, Israelis need moral and psychological strength, right? And to persevere. And we need freedom from fear. We need physical strength because we're so tired. And then of course the big thing is just when war broke out, men and women across the country in their 40s and 50s were being summoned up again, pulled away from their families, and put into positions of responsibility within the IDF and all kinds of roles. And this is having a huge impact on the culture, and has and will even so for probably a generation. The psychological, spiritual impact of the trauma of that going back and forth. Families are struggling, and there has been a distinct increase in despair and suicides among those who come back from serving. So,
and there again,
so pray for their spiritual well-being.
Brian, you couldn't have said it. You couldn't have said it better. I'm reflecting. I'm thinking in America, my dear friends over there, hear me. I'm applying also this to the UK. Is for us to get on our knees and understand even more of what the reality of this, Brian. The reality of this. When you're saying, with respect to your dear friends who are trying to get out, I respect that. But this is the reality that Israel has lived with a minimum from 1948, if not beyond. We don't have time to go through that history. I'll just say it again, this is the reality. This isn't voyeurism. We have an amazing privilege to talk to you like we do with other people. This is not a hobby. This is real. When we're commenting, giving an update on this, giving an update on that, and I know John works so hard to bring the news and bring an assessment. It isn't voyeurism. It's actually our way of being able to stand with you and a good reminder of what we need to be praying about, etc., in this situation. Brian, thank you.
Ben, thank you, Mark.
So, Brian, let me ask you this.
That's true.
I'm sort of watching what's going on, and I just want to see if this is a feeling in Israel. It seems like when we're in the midst of this, we don't really have time to sit back and say that had a supernatural aspect to it. But is the thinking in Israel that some of the stuff going on does have and the success that it appears that Israel and the United States have had?
Very, very much so. Yes.
Yeah.
No, it very clearly so. I have heard people who would not normally say this, that we're living in biblical times and we're seeing God act, and that's remarkable, right? He is
kind of
acting.
interesting when people in the land of the Bible say, "I think we're living in biblical times." I think that's kind of the point we're heading towards.
Yeah. Right, but these are people who are not inclined to think in terms of Bible prophecy or even speak in those terms publicly. They would not normally do this, but there is a very keen sense that God is blessing Israel's efforts, just like He did with Joshua. Going in to conquer the land. He didn't just go in and blow everyone away. We had to go fight, and just as in the days of Joshua, we're having to go and fight now. And with the risk has been huge. The risk has been huge, but we've gone ahead and acted. And again, it's like Esther. Esther risked her life to go to the king because he could have had her executed when she wasn't invited to come before him. And Mordecai advised her, go. Who knows, but you've been prepared, chosen to be in that position for such a time as this. And I actually suspect Mordecai was confident she would have access to the king and not be put to death, because he knew what Moses said in Deuteronomy 17. He knew that there was a mandate from Moses, from God, to wipe out the Amalekites. And so he was confident God would pave the way. I also love that Esther is a book in which the name of God is never mentioned, not a single time. But he's in every sentence, every circumstance of the story. And that is so 21st century. That's so where we are. And what I'm seeing here is a growing realization of God in the circumstances of our lives, just like He was in the circumstances of the events that we read about in Esther.
Wow. How do we? Let me just make a recommendation. In the show notes, there are some links. This is on the YouTube show notes. I'll post it on Rumble and put notes in there later today. But there's an article that has really made the rounds. I've posted it on Facebook, Brian. I know you've been sharing it by a Twitter account. She claims to be evangelical Christian. I'm not sure who she is, but her work is phenomenal. I mean, really is. It's called Insurrection Barbie. The Twitter handle is @DefiantlyFree, which I find both of those to be some of the most interesting Twitter handles and account names around. But she posted something recently about the infiltration of Russian propaganda into the MAGA movement on the right in America. And Mark and I did, it was almost a year ago, Mark, that we did that interview with Trevor Loudon. We'll have to repeat something like that.
We'll have to do that
where
again.
We talked about the Red-Green Alliance and that type of thing. So Insurrection Barbie has done a phenomenal job of sort of collating all of this information. So what are your thoughts on that, what Insurrection Barbie brought up about how this is really a Alexander Dugin Russian propaganda operation to divide the American right ahead of the elections?
I think she's spot on. And I read that article just this afternoon and was blown away by it. I think she has accurately identified the ideological agenda to disrupt and disorient evangelicals in terms of basically taking the Bible at face value and replacing it with well, if you will, a replacement theology perspective of the Bible in part, but it is a she sees it coming from something I think called, she's not anti-Catholic, but she said there's something called Catholic, I think, integralism. Is that right?
Integralism, yeah.
And I found it absolutely intriguing. I think she's identified exactly what is being done and how and why people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and Steve Bannon are, how and why they're having so much influence and why this is happening. So I highly recommend that people follow Insurrection Barbie. What's her handle again? At Freedom.
At Defiantly
Free. Freedom. Yeah, Defiantly Free. Yeah. No, she's remarkable, and she does actually does live broadcasts often on Twitter as well, on X.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle to get one a week or two a week, maybe.
I know.
And she's out there like, I don't understand how somebody is that productive, or maybe it's a team.
I don't either. I mean, it's amazing.
But I'm also seeing some articles today too that are building on what Insurrection Barbie has brought about, and really going after people on the American right, Steve Bannon, Matt Gaetz, who's with One American News, and they just completely flipped against
Absolutely.
Israel, and that it's shocking to watch. And there are a lot of these people. Michael Flynn, I think, would be another one that I have a lot of questions and concerns about. They kind of have a connection with Peter Thiel, which brings in the AI stuff, and I mean, we're in a very. Am I wrong in thinking that we're sort of in, I would call it remnant time, where the circle is getting very small?
Oh, I think so.
It's just, it seems like I'm all alone. It's just a very small circle that you're in.
I have, you've heard me say this before, but we live in days, you say this, when it's very difficult to discern what's true. Whether it's videos produced by AI or claims are being made, statements being made, we live in a day when it's hard to know what is the truth, and we're hearing deception from voices that use language that we like. You know, if as evangelical Christians, we're hearing these people use Christian lingo and language and arguments. How do we discern the truth? Do we have to be intellectual giants to be able to know what's true and what's not? And I think there is a canary that we all have in the coal mine of life, and when that canary keels over, we know that we're hearing something that's toxic and not true. And the toxicity is anti-Semitism.
Absolutely.
Anytime we hear, whether it's in the pulpit, whether it's from a friend, whether it's from a professor or a university or a government official, doesn't matter. We're going to hear deception from all these sources, and we are. And when we do, and when you hear it go against Israel, you know you're hearing something that is toxic, that error has crept in, even fatal error. And just like a coal miner, when the canary falls dead, scrambles to get out, I think there's a lesson. We need to very, very much do the same thing. Get away from that rhetoric and recognize that we have encountered something that's toxic, even if we don't understand why it's toxic or how it came about. You don't wait to figure out why the error is bad to leave and get where it's good. You just know the error is bad. I've got to get where I can live. And so there's that litmus test for truth that anybody can use, no matter who they are. We have that ability to discern what's true or not. And when the rhetoric goes against Israel and it's being slandered or slammed or vilified, we're hearing something that is basically demonic.
Yeah. John, Brian, I do apologize. I'm going to have to hop off. And,
Yeah, me too.
Well, Brian's got to go too, so
and,
I'll wrap
but
up a little
can
bit.
I?
I'll go it alone. I don't usually like to talk
Okay.
just by myself.
John, thank you. Brian, it's been so good to see you. What a wonderful
Likewise.
conversation with you guys. So thank you. I'm going to jump off and interview a retired brigadier general from Israel, which is a real privilege to do. So I'll tell you all about that afterwards.
Are you doing a
I'm
mirror
doing
meeting?
Yossi Cooper Vassar. I'm just going to
okay.
have another conversation with Yossi. So
Okay, I'll let you go.
And you.
We'll
talk to you soon.
We'll follow back up. Okay, thanks, Mark.
Let's take you.
And Brian, I know you got to go too. So
Right. If anybody can handle it alone, you can, John.
I don't know. Anyway, thanks. Anything that
Yeah.
you got coming up that we should be looking for? Interviews or whatever?
I thought I had an interview coming up, and I don't even want to say that I say who it is now because it might not happen. So
Okay.
I'm stumbling here because I'm tired. My brain is just shutting down. It's 6 p.m. here, and I'm ready to go to bed. But
yeah, well, we'll keep following up, and you're in our prayers and everything. And
all right,
you can just click leave studio, and then I'll
right.
wrap up here.
All right, thank you so much. God bless.
Thanks. God bless. So everyone, I guess that just leaves me to do a few things here to clean up. Listen. This is a very interesting time to be alive. I have put in the show notes a lot of the things that I've been looking at, and then there are even things that I haven't put in those notes yet. I was reading an article yesterday by a guy named Larry Taunton, Taunton, I believe is how you spell it. It's at the Federalist, and it's talking about October 7th, but the subject of the interview is a friend of mine who I hope to interview in the near future. It's hard to interview people in Israel right now because everybody's more concerned about their families, and I had some interviews scheduled this week that got canceled because you don't know when somebody in the middle of it, they're going to have to run to a bomb shelter. So, and I'm watching interviews, people doing at JNS and everything. They're doing an interview with, I think Deron Spielman was doing an interview with the Great Harold Road, and they had to stop 2 or 3 times in the middle of it because one or both of them had to go to bomb shelters. So anyway, so pray about that. That's a very difficult situation because we want to get information from people on the ground. But the interview that I was talking about, the article was Larry Taunton in the Federalist, talking about a lot of things that happened on October 7th. I'll put a link in the show notes as soon as we finish here, and I'll put it at the top of the list. You should read it, and you should read Insurrection Barbie's article, both of them a number of times. Now, the focus of Larry Taunton's article does turn to Doron Kedar, who is a friend of mine, who I've met and spent some time with in Israel. And he also did a phenomenal video called "I Am Israel" with the Israel guys. It's really one you should get and watch. I just think it's very, very well done, and it's essentially a summary of the tour that I led last fall and that I'll lead again this fall, hopefully in September, October at Sukkot. Link, by the way, that tour information can be at fbchapel.com. There's John Haller Israel Tour right at the top. Just click on that and then click again, and you'll get the brochure information if you're interested in that. But Jerome is Special Forces IDF. He was one of the first IDF people down to the Gaza envelope on October 7th. And when you sit with him and he talks a little bit about what he saw, the evidences of rape, mutilation, the horrific things that he saw, you begin to get a little bit of an understanding about this whole thing that we were talking about biblically about Amalek and how Amalek seems to reappear at every generation. I think that's one of the teachings in in Judaism. And it seems to be true. And so there was a very good graphic that I saw this week. It had Khamenei name, and then it crossed out the ends and it said Haman. And so the end of Khamenei was much like the end of Haman. And he got very sloppy. There's also a link in the show notes to an interview that the guys that from the UK, another one of the great channel names, Triggernometry. They did an interview of a couple Iranian experts this week, and one of the points that the one of the persons from Iran was making is that we need to understand that this is a very, very much a spiritual and religious war that's going on. That's really what lies behind it, and it's unspeakable evil on the part of Islam. And the point that was made, I don't have the ability to pull the graphics up this morning like I usually do. I went and looked at the Iranian Constitution, which was adopted after the revolution in 1979 and then updated in 1989. And in Article 5 of the Iranian Constitution that exists in Iran today, we talk about Khamenei as the supreme leader. There's some talk that his son has been elected, but I don't think they've officially announced it yet that he will be the new supreme leader. But the real supreme leader in Iran under the Constitution is a 5-year-old kid who disappeared in a well back in the 800s AD. And he's in, I think it's Khorasan. There's this well where it is believed that he will re-emerge as the Mahdi. He will re-emerge in a time of absolute apocalyptic chaos. So Christians with proper eschatology, we don't believe that we will cause the end times. We believe that those things are going to happen and God's going to direct those things as he sees fit. But the differences in Shia Islam is that they think that by creating this apocalyptic Armageddon type scenario, they can bring about the time for the Mahdi to reemerge. So in some sense, the attacks on Iran, they're fine with, because this is causing the chaos that they want to bring. And I think that mindset, though, is what's led them to attack various Persian Gulf region countries like Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Qatar, United Arab Emirates. I think even Kuwait has been attacked, and because they're trying to cause this massive disruption. So the question is right now is where's all this going? And you will get a lot of different information, a lot of different conclusions and arguments from people. So one belief is Trump is playing 5D chess. I don't agree with this. I'm just saying what some people are saying. Trump is playing 5D chess. We took out Maduro in Venezuela, kind of got control over the oil coming out of Venezuela, and that some think that the oil control is what's really behind this war with Iraq and control the oil flow through the Persian Gulf. And part of that is because the lack of oil, China needs oil to survive. China doesn't really have its own oil and gas. And so this is diminishing China. Also remember, there were reports of Russian and Chinese military transports taking unspecified equipment to Iran. There's pretty good evidence that what they were taking to Iran were air defense systems, and the United States and Israel took those air defense systems out almost immediately. Now there's a sort of satellite-based, I can't remember the exact term, I think there's a link in the show notes to it, that they're able to get coordinates on missile launchers. And it's satellite, and they gather this information. They bring the missile launchers out. They launch a missile. They get the coordinates, and boom, we go after it right away. So the question is, they may still have a lot of missiles, but they're running short on missile launchers, which is why it keeps going down in number. But it's still a big problem when you talk to people in Israel that, well, you're not getting attacked as much today as you did 5 days ago. Their response is, it sure doesn't seem like it, because it's still a huge burden, because they just launch 8 or 10 missiles and the whole country goes into bomb shelters, and it's incredibly disruptive to life. I have a friend, Nicole, Nick Jan is her channel, and she was saying yesterday, we have been told that if you have a place that you work where there's a shelter, a bomb shelter at work, you should go to work. That was today. But the schools are closed. And so everybody's like, well, wait a minute. If both of us work, what do we do with our children? We can't leave them at home. The schools are closed. And it's very, very difficult and disruptive to regular life in Israel. It's somewhat chaotic. So you need to pray for the people there that they'll be able to work through these things of life. But I will say, from just so we talked about Trump. Trump is playing 5D chess. Other people, for example, I see channels saying the U.S. and Israel are getting decimated. I think this is propaganda, but they say, well, back in the Gulf War, we saw the pictures of the cameras on the missiles, of the missiles coming in, and we're not seeing that now. That means it doesn't exist. It's not happening because Israel and the U.S. are decimated, and they're not being able to keep up. And so we live in this world where propaganda is just absolutely shoved down our throats all the time, and it's hard to take a step back and try to look at it. So that's why I'm tempted to do a live update every now and then, but my goal is to try to be correct when I talk about things and not necessarily be first. Because if you go too quickly, you're probably going to get some things wrong. And I don't really want to have to spend a lot of time going back to correct what I've said. So that's why I'm sort of a little reluctant to do the live things right away. Other people, that's, if they want to do that, that's fine. It's just, that's my thinking and why I do that. But this has been a stunning, amazing week. There's a great article in the Financial Times. Make a mental note. I'll try to remember to put that in, about how they took out Khomeini. He really wasn't in a bunker. He was, I believe, in his home, because he felt like, well, they'll never come after me. And now, from a Bible prophecy standpoint, what does all of this mean? And the answer is, I think we're in a very strange area. For example, we have certain prophecies that we think are still to be fulfilled. Ezekiel 38 and 39 would be one of those. And I don't think we're there yet. But so I'm just going to talk from the way I'm sort of thinking and analyzing things. So we know Persia is in Ezekiel 38 and 39. So some people will take that and say, well, nothing's going to happen to Persia. It's not going to change or anything. And I'm not sure that that's correct. I just respectfully disagree with that, because the Persia in Ezekiel 38 and 39, it's not specified by borders or even people groups. This is one of the issues we have in how we interpret Bible prophecy. For example, Ezekiel looked at, he was given this vision of this great war that happens in the latter days, and he described certain regions that will come against Israel in those days. Persia, Togarmah, Gomer, Meshach, Tubal, Push, and Kut. Or Cush and, Cush and Put. It's early here. And so some people say that when he said that, he was describing the ethnic people in those regions. And so then we should trace where those people went over history to find out who will come against Israel in the last days. And I and a bunch of other people do not think that that's correct, that he was describing the geographic region of Persia, the geographic region of Put, the geographic region of Cush, the geographic region of Magog, Meshach, Tubal, Togarmah, and Gomer, as those who's in that region in the end days. Whoever's living there at that time will come against Israel. I think that's the proper way to look at it. Another example, thinking off the top of my head, where there's some controversy in our community, and by the way, I was talking to Tom Hughes last night. I'm going to be recording some things with him in a couple days, and then we'll be together at Bakersfield on Wednesday night. But the one thing we said was nobody agrees with anybody else on how this is working out, and that's fine. We're at a time where it's very chaotic. It's very difficult to figure out how these things are going to unfold. So I think that we need to be kind of humble about it. But nevertheless, I believe that the geographic region as it exists at the end times is what's being described. One controversy would be the prophecy of Obadiah. Some people say prophecy of Obadiah has been fulfilled. We don't have to worry about it. But it talks about people that live in a place as the eagle. I believe it's a prophecy about Edom. And I think it's a prophecy that I personally believe is tied to Ezekiel chapter 36 about people who occupy the mountains of Israel. And when you go to Israel today, you go to the mountains of Israel, this is very interesting, the biblical heartland. I've been places that Jewish people who've lived in Israel all of their life have never been, to biblical sites, clearly established, no question biblical sites like Shem and others. They're not allowed to go to. Or if they go to them, like I did on my tour, you want to go to Joshua's altar, we went with some other groups to share costs. We got on a bulletproof bus and we went in to Mount Ebal to Joshua's altar under a armed IDF guard. And when we got out and we're walking around the site there and a little bit of a hike from where the buses were to the altar, there are drones flying around. There was a drone tracking me for like a couple 100 yards as I was walking. And that's fine. That's security. That's people were watching out for us, but it's the nature of the situation. And so when we tie this to Obadiah and Ezekiel 36, Obadiah says there's going to be this great judgment of Edom. Now, I personally believe that's the people who identify as Palestinian Arabs today because they come from that region. They, even in their own history, they say that. Some people say that prophecy has been fulfilled. I personally believe that that's a mistake, that I think this is one that we're living right in the middle of. And people say, well, the Edomites are gone. They're completely destroyed as a people. But if you look at it from an ethnic standpoint, that's correct. But if you look at it from a geographical region standpoint, like I believe, it's still a prophecy that's in play. And that one is definitely in play. Ezekiel 36 is the same way. So, and by the way, the Palestinians tie a lot of their history to Edom. We're the Edomites. And so the issue becomes, for example, some Orthodox Jewish rabbis teach that Edom is Western culture, civilization, and Christianity. And my point to them was, sort of looking for Edom in all the wrong places. Why don't you look for the Edom that's right under your nose? If you look at it from a different interpretive grid as you're looking at scripture. So that's my view. I don't think that people that disagree with me are heretics. Right now, there's tremendous disagreement within the Bible prophecy community over the prophecy of Elam in Jeremiah chapter 49. My view, and a lot of others, we're discussing it back and forth this week, is that this restoration of Elam is something that happens and is tied to the beginning of the millennial kingdom, when Elam will be restored. A lot of people don't agree with that, and I think that's, again, I think that's an error. I don't think that makes him a heretic. It's just that interpreting prophecy can be very, very tricky. And then you also have, for example, the prophecies in Ezekiel 36. I've talked a lot about this one again, and I may do that as on one of my talks in Vegas coming up in a couple weeks. But the prophecy, it talks about the fact that I'm going to send you out into the nations because you've disobeyed, you've played the harlot. It's a common theme in the Old Testament. And I'll disperse you to the nations. I mean, it comes out of Deuteronomy. It's in Ezekiel. It's a common theme. But then it says, I'm going to bring you back. And I'm not going to bring you back because when you went into the nations, you played the harlot. But I'm going to bring you back because I've made this promise to you, this covenant with you about the land. And I'm going to bring you back because my holy name is at stake. It says in Ezekiel 36. And when they come back, it says, and then I will give you a new heart, a heart of flesh. And then you will know that I am the Lord. So that's a prophecy, I think, that's in process. They're back in the land, largely, still not completely. And God will give them a new heart. Now, the question is, how does that new heart come about? And I've been thinking a lot about this, and maybe I'm way out on a limb, okay, but I'm just going to share my heart on this. This week, there was Tucker put up an interview, or a commentary, and in the commentary, he says the whole war in the Middle East is because of this little patch, which I have. Somebody in Israel gave it to me, and I have it on a hat. It's a patch of the temple, and it says Moshiach. And so Tucker says the whole war in the Middle East is so Israel can rebuild the temple on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. And it's all the Jews' fault. It's all the Jews' fault. But then we have the question that we have to deal with on the other side in portions of Judaism that are concerned about building the temple. And the way I'm sort of thinking about it now is that when we read Romans 11 and we read Ezekiel 36, it talks about, I will give them a new heart. And so I've been thinking about what's the process of this. And so I'm just going to suggest, not dogmatic about this, but I'm going to suggest that the new heart and what happens in Romans 11 is sort of the grafting back in of the natural branches is a process of restoration. And it may not happen on the terms and the timing that we want, but I think that we're in the midst of that restoration where the Jews lost everything in 70 AD. Now it's being restored to them, their connection to the land, the archaeological findings, and a desire for the temple. They don't have this. We know that the Antichrist will use this as a device to promote himself. I get that. But I also think that we're in the process of this restoration of them into this, what we would call final redemption aspect. Now, I don't know how that's all going to work out. I don't even know if it's going to work out in my lifetime now. But I'm just saying, as traveling around Israel and seeing it and talking about it, and talking to some of the Orthodox rabbis there, they really believe that we're in the end times. Now, there's some things that we disagree on strongly, but again, we're in this process of the final restoration and redemption. That's just my view, and you're free to disagree with that if you do. But I think it's a very, very significant time in which we live. And so we see a lot of things. Now the focus is really on the Middle East and what's going on. What's going to happen? How's this going to affect China? I've been collecting articles recently this week on I started talking about this like 8 years ago, the collapse in demographics, that birth rates were down and whole cultures, countries were over a couple of decades, a couple, 3 decades, assuming the war doesn't return, are going to be severely diminished. I mean, there are whole villages in regions of China that have completely disappeared. There are cities and villages and towns with 100, 500,000 people that existed 20 years ago that do not exist today. This is something that's not ever really happened in human history. Personally, I think it's significant, and I'm not sure how it plays into Bible prophecy. It may make people who are collapsing demographically more inclined to do something right now. That's a very real possibility. But this is a huge issue that we're facing, and there are large cultures, China and India, that have tens of millions of men who have no prospect of a wife. How does that play out militarily or whatever? And now we're in a place where the main chunk of population is aging to a place where they're not going to have children. So there are all these programs. We're going to get people incentives to have kids. None of those are going to work. This is something that is, in my view, irreversible, absent a kind of miracle that I'm not aware, I can't put together in my head. So it's just one of these lines of Bible prophecy that I think we need to look at. So we have the geopolitical things, we have all the prophecies in Ezekiel, Obadiah, Jeremiah. How do these all interplay together? Someone I was listening to the other day said that they look at Ezekiel 38, 39, and they sort of put Romans 11 on 9 through 11 on top of it. I believe that's what the person said. I thought that was a very interesting way to look at it. We have these common phrases that occur like all through Ezekiel, and then they will know, and then the nations will know. And the question is, what is it that they know? Because it doesn't necessarily specify specifically. So I just think there's a lot of things in Bible prophecy that we're in this Daniel 12 stage where we're at the end times and the wise will understand as things unfold. And we may have to blow up the charts and graphs and everything that we did. So I've droned on a little bit too long. Let me just see here if there's any quick questions that let's see. I'm just looking for any questions. So anyway, so look, maybe I'll just go ahead and terminate here. I really appreciate you watching this morning. As I said, we're out in California on a little vacation and to do some speaking and other things. Wednesday night, 6 p.m. California time at Rock Harbor Church with Brandon Holthouse and Tom Hughes. And then March 20th to 22nd, I don't know if it's Calvary Chapel Harvest Life or Harvest Life Calvary Chapel in Las Vegas with Kurt Reed, Tom Hughes, Pete Garcia, Billy Crone. So I'll be there anyway. So I appreciate it. If you're interested, please look into signing up for those. And I just think I think my concern right now is that the rise in outright Jew hatred in the religious right in America is very troubling to me. And I also think we're getting a little bit there's a lot of arguments going on within the Bible prophecy community, and I hope we can do those in a godly manner. We're going to disagree. I mean, that's part of this process that we're in, trying to understand and make sense of the times in which we live. And Daniel seems to indicate that it's going to be a process. The wise people will go back and forth through the book, and the wise will understand, and the wicked will never understand. So the people, sadly, like Tucker and others, they're never going to understand. They may be gone. Pray for them. I would say they're very irritating, so don't pay attention to them if you want. But we're in this process, and it's going to be kind of a messy process until the Lord returns. But God is faithful. It's all going to work out according to his plan and to his glory. So anyway, thank you. Like, share, subscribe, and I'll be back at Fellowship Bible Chapel next Sunday. We'll talk to you then, if not before. God bless. Thank you very much.